We have some changes and we are starting tonight. First of all, in 2 years of doing this is the first time that I've ever done it live. So, and I've done for the last 2 years where I've interviewed guests and had people on, and we're changing it up a little bit. And I'm excited to bring in my good friend, the great Miss Chyna. She's going to now be joining me. We're going to do this show together. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to talk about behavior, and I'm super excited to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited. I can't wait to jump in.
So, I forgot to hit Instagram. Let me hit it now. Okay. Let's see if it comes on. So I wanted to just start by telling you sort of how I thought of having you and wanting to do this show with you. It's been a while actually where I've been excited to do the show with you since you first came on my podcast as a guest. And are you going to, can you join? There you go. Let me view.
I sent your request.
There we go. Okay. Now we'll be on Instagram as well. All right. There we go. Hey, everybody. All right. Good to see everybody. So I'm here with Miss Chyna. We are on our own show now called, there she is, Beyond the Behavior. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Are you getting a little bit of feedback?
That was the first feedback. Turn your phone down.
My phone down. All right. See, it's cool though, because we're getting this all figured out as we go. I think I got it now.
This is our first time. It's going to be trial and error, and we'll just kind of roll with the punches, right? It's what we do in school.
Roll with the punches. You got to do it, and you're as good as it gets at rolling with the punches. You work with some of the most challenging kids that there are, and so I was starting by telling you I was excited to do the show with you because you and I talk a lot about kids and about school and about behavior, and you actually came on with me when I was doing a session recently, and we were talking about. You came on, you were kind of exasperated and you were like, this kid just had a meltdown. You remember that? And then and I was like, well, what happened? And you kind of looked at me and you're like, well, it actually probably could have been prevented. And in that moment, I was like, you know what? I want to do a show with you where we can help teachers and talk about. I'm echoing.
I think it's echoing here. I can't figure out how to get the sound off.
See, you're not echoing with me. Well, you are a little bit.
Instagram Live, I think.
What's that?
Are we echoing on Instagram Live?
Yes. Oh, so I'm not. I don't hear the echo, but yeah, some people are saying there's echo. So it's on Instagram, the echo. Do you have headphones?
I do have headphones. Hold on.
Try your headphones and see if your headphones work. Yeah, no, you're good. So anyway, what I was saying before, as she goes to get her headphones, is that she kind of came in exasperated, and we were talking about. She said that, the behavior could have been prevented with, the right training and the right mindset. And, and I said, let's do a show where we can kind of get together and we can help teachers that are struggling with, with kids. And I think this time of year, so they're hearing the echo big time on Instagram. So we got to figure this out. Sorry, guys. All right, why don't they go to YouTube? Can you guys go to YouTube? And Facebook or Facebook. They said I'm echoing. Is she echoing? Go ahead, talk. You talk.
Am I echoing? Facebook has no echo.
Facebook has no echo. Maybe it's just me.
I'm echoing on Facebook. I don't really know if it's my I'm hiding my Instagram Live.
I think I see what's happening. Is it's like different. There's a different delay. Yeah, we're on Facebook too. I think we're on Facebook. We're supposed to be on Facebook. She's not. Try my Facebook page. Can you guys go to Brian?
I'm echoing. No, just Brian. Just you or
really? You are. That's weird. Just I'm echoing. How about if I turn myself down? What about now? Am I still echoing? Only I'm on Instagram. So she's not even on Instagram with me anymore? This is great.
Oh, this is so funny.
All right, whatever. So listen, let's log off Instagram. So we're going to say goodbye to Instagram. We'll come back to Instagram another time, and we're going to go to the other two. Bye, and sorry, Instagram. We'll get you next time. Only me?
Facebook, go there.
Go there. Bye.
Well, we'll figure that one out next time.
Yeah. Oh, well, we tried. All right. So anyway, good to see you. Let's start that again. How are you? So what I was saying was, first of all, I'm super excited to do the show with you. And I was saying how, you know, the day that I sort of cemented the fact that I wanted to do this was when we were talking, and you were like, you know, I feel like a lot of behaviors can be prevented with the right training and the right mindset. And we started getting into that conversation, and I said, you know what, let's do a show on this where we can help teachers. And here we are. So it's good to see you.
Yeah. And this wasn't a podcast or anything. We were just talking about some other things in general. And all of a sudden I got going on one of my little Chihuahua rants that I do. And there we went.
What was going on that day? You remember that?
Yeah, there was just a situation with a kiddo that, you know, if all teachers, I think, were better informed of what that kid was going through at home, what had happened in the morning that day, a lot of things could have been prevented, you know? And so that's a lot of it. You know, we have to think, did the kid get breakfast this morning? Did something derail them? Did they get in a huge fight when they were in the car before they showed up to school? Was it raining when they walked to school? Whatever it is, there's something that usually contributes to the behaviors that we're seeing.
No question. And I think sometimes it's easy inadvertently to pour gasoline on a little tiny fire when we don't know exactly what's going on. And to, you know, that's why we talk in education so much about relationships and the you know, the focus on building relationships and connecting with kids. And I feel like that's why it's so important, because when those moments come, right, we have to be ready and have a connection with the kid in order to diffuse them.
100%. And that's where Brian and I were kind of talking, and we thought, you know, we want to create something where we can problem solve those kids that really push our buttons, right? The kids that just get under our skin sometimes, that we sometimes take personally and we don't need to. And just kind of focusing on getting past that behavior, getting beyond the behavior, and seeing the kid for other things than just those.
And I love the phrase beyond the behavior. I mean, when we were talking about what to name this and what to call it, I love that phrase because, you know, I think a lot of times people see behavior as the problem, when really I see behavior as the solution to the problem, right? The real problem is the kid is desperate to be noticed. The kid is desperate to have someone pay attention to them. The kid is desperate to feel some power and control in their life. And so what's the solution to that? The solution is, let me act inappropriate. Let me call people names. Let me be disruptive. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in the behavior, but when we can look beyond the behavior, and I literally sometimes like to move my body, right? Like the kid is being inappropriate, correct. And it's like someone's throwing a punch and I'm going to dodge it. And I'm going to look at what's pushing that punch to the surface. And the other thing I feel like that does for me as a teacher is it allows me to stay calm, right? Because I'm no longer seeing the behavior as the thing that's the problem.
It's all problem solving. Truly. It's like we're these behavior detectives and we're trying to figure out where is it all coming from? It's looking at it from a different perspective, 100%. Like what you said there. I was also going to say, just so people know, as we're going through this live, you are welcome to put comments, put questions. If you're looking for advice, that you need help problem solving, suggestions, anything like that, go ahead and put them in the comments and we will be answering some of those as we go. So just want to make sure you guys are all aware of that.
Yep. Yeah. Feel free to interact and be a part of this. We totally want that. And so what I was going to ask you is, so let's start with, you know, your advice on how do I connect with a kid, right? Like, how do I connect with a kid who's just melting down and freaking out? Like, what do I do? And so two questions, right? One is, what do I do? But the other is, how do I go about making that connection with that kid?
So I'm going to kind of start from square one, because a lot of times what happens in my position is I get to interact with kids once they're having a meltdown. So sometimes I'll get called into a situation and I literally have never talked to the kid in my entire life. So I'm walking in blind, right? I don't even know what the kid looks like. I'll be like, oh, which one is it? You know? And so I walk in and I don't know the kid at all. And in that moment, it can be really, really challenging. The only thing that you can hope to do is that you'll find something that might distract that kid or connect you with that kid in a different way. You know, so sometimes I'll start with something as basic as, what did you pick for lunch today? Did you eat breakfast? Just kind of fishing and finding different things. If they're not interacting, I might say something about their shoes that they're wearing, or draw attention to something yellow in the room or something red in the room. But in that moment, every single time when I'm sitting with a kid for the first time and I don't know them and they're having a meltdown, my next thought is, man, the next time they're not having a meltdown, I need to sit down with this kid and get to know them. Because the of the matter is if you don't have that relationship, no matter how hard you try, it's virtually impossible to be able to help them through those moments. You know, every once in a while, you can kind of get them to go to a safer place. You can get them to kind of calm their body or distract them. But the brunt of everything, if you're going to work through a meltdown, is you have to have that relationship. And so that's always what I'm thinking, you know, how am I going to build that relationship the next time when this kid isn't having a meltdown, they're not escalated. Yeah. And I think it's just those connections, you know, it can be something so basic. What kind of music do you like to listen to? Oh, you need to be alone when you're mad. That's how I feel too. I think just kind of recognizing those things in yourself is really important for kids.
You know, I totally agree. And I think what you just said, right? Like it's almost like my thought process with a lot of kids is that I have to be their teammate before I can be their coach. Like I have to put them myself on the same team as a kid. I feel like sometimes we try to coach a kid before we really built that connection or that relationship. And you know, and so what does that look like? Kind of what you just said, which is, you know, hey, bud, like I want to talk to you. Like I'm impulsive, you know, kind of like someone else we know, right? And sometimes I say inappropriate things, kind of like someone else we know, right? And it's kind of amazing how similar we are. You see how similar we are? I mean, kind of the only thing that's different between us is like, I mean, actually, really, this isn't even that different either because you get upset sometimes, right? Well, yeah, so do I. And sometimes you say inappropriate things, right? Yeah, me too. I do it as well. The only difference between us is like when I get angry, when I get mad, when I get frustrated, I don't bite, kick, punch, spit, and hit. I mean, sometimes I feel like doing those things. I really do, but I try really hard not to, you know? And so we're really so similar. It's incredible. And showing them how similar they are. Now we're teammates, right? Now we're on the same team. Now there's a good chance that you're going to let me coach you.
100%. And I actually just had a situation today that I was kind of thinking about. And this kid, I came into the situation, you know, the kid's upset, they're frustrated. And the kid kept saying, I can't control what I'm doing. So they were kind of throwing things, they were ripping things apart. And they said, I can't control it. I can't control it. And meanwhile, this kid was kind of talking to somebody else and they were saying, you can control it. You're in control of what you're doing. And so when I came in, I was just kind of listening to what the student had to say. And they were saying, I can't control it. I can't control it. And I said, you know, I've been there. I can't control it either sometimes. I said, I'm noticing right now that your body can't control itself. I said, do you ever notice that you can't control what you're saying? Do you ever notice that you feel so many emotions that you can't control the words that are coming out of your mouth? And the kid, I think, just felt acknowledged where they almost paused for a second and kind of, it reframed everything. And so I ended up getting this kid to walk with me. We kind of talked through things. And I said, you know, even though there's some moments that you can't control because those emotions are really big and they're really heavy, do you know what the most important part is? We have to repair whatever we did. So if we tore apart something, we have to make sure we fix that. If we hurt someone's feelings, we have to make sure we restore that relationship. And so we talked about those things, the aftermath. If in the moment, maybe sometimes we can't control it because that's life. Sometimes we can't control everything that happens.
No question. No question. I think frequently that's the case. And I think getting kids to acknowledge that and to be able to pay attention to that, right? To notice, you know, somebody put, what if the meltdown is a running sprint around the school building? What is your strategy to get them to stop? Go, that's you. You're good with that.
So I would say, if the meltdown is because they are like truly escalated and they are frustrated, the chances that they're probably not in their right mindset where they know where they're actually going. So I'd say this is something you want to be preventative more than reactive. So if you can designate safe spots, whether it be in the principal's room, if it's in a resource room, whether it's in the classroom, maybe there's a special spot in the classroom. Some kids that you have are really going to buy into having a safe spot where, like, if you designate a certain color carpet spot and say, hey, this is your color spot, that's where you're going to go when you're upset. You can go to any of these three spaces, but you have to make it. My rule for all of my kids, when they're upset, when they're frustrated, it is 100% okay to run. But if you're going to run, you have to make it to your safe spot. So non-negotiable. If they don't make it there, then there's consequences depending on their behavior plan. But I think preventatively talking about where they can go and what they need to do is really, really important. Another thing that I notice is when kids are eloping and they are sprinting around the room or sprinting around the school, why are they doing it? They're probably trying to get away from everything that feels overwhelming to them. They're probably trying to get away from authority. They're trying to get away from talking about it. They're just trying to get away from the entire problem. So for my kids, if they're running around the building, they know that I'll leave them alone once they make it to a safe spot. So it's like, hey, I get you're frustrated, but I'm going to keep following you until you make it where you need to be.
Yeah.
And eventually they kind of get there. But I would say for elopers, especially ones that run, you want to be proactive on that and have safe spots designated.
I love the concept of giving them a place to go, right? Like giving kids a place to go. And I love that thought, right? So I was working in a first grade class one time. I was consulting in a first grade class, and there was a kid who was sitting by himself. This was actually before quarantining was a thing. And he was like, actually, this was a while ago. So he was sitting kind of alone. It looked like he was a little bit separated from the class. And, he was sitting there, he was fidgety, obviously. And he gets up kind of real quick, all of a sudden, like a couple minutes into class, and he grabs his stuff. And I see him wandering through the room, and he ends up at a table in the back. And then he gets up from that table and he goes back to his other. He did this like 3 times during class. So class ended and I went over to him. So normally when something like that happens, I'll go to the teacher, right? To see like what was going on. But in this case, the teacher was busy. So I went to the kid and I was like, hey buddy, listen. And this is how I always introduce myself. I'm like, my name's Mr. Brian. I'm like, listen, my name is Mr. Brian, and I'm guessing you're wondering why I'm here right now. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, you know how the teachers teach you guys? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, I have this really cool job where I get to help teach the teachers. And this boy is pretty funny, by the way. He looks at me and he goes, oh, well, good thing you're here today because ours need it bad. But anyway, I was like, okay. But I said, like, what was that? I was like, I saw you over there. Then you were over there. Then you're over there. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, yeah, well, my teacher says I'm special. And I said, oh, okay, great. Why are you special? And he goes, that's my home. And he pointed to his first desk. And I said, that's your what? He goes, that's my home. I said, your home? He goes, yeah, that's my home. And I said, okay. And then he looks at me and he goes, but I'm so special that I get a vacation home too. And I'm allowed to go between my home and my vacation home as many times as I want, but I'm not allowed to step at anyone else's home because if I do, that's trespassing and I could go to jail. And I started laughing, right? And so I looked at the teacher and she comes over and she's like, and then she goes, well, you could go to, and then she looks at the little boy and she goes, tell Mr. Brian the truth. She said, you don't just like to trespass, do you? And the little boy looks at me and he goes, no, sometimes I steal when I trespass. And that's why his hands were always occupied when he got up from his chair. But the concept, right, of giving someone a place to go when they need to move, so incredibly powerful. And the other thing that I was going to say to that for the runners is, look, number one is safety always comes first, right? Safety is always the number one priority. And so we have to make sure the kid is safe. That said, I think a mistake sometimes that a lot of us make is when a kid runs, I think the instinctive thought process a lot of times for the educator is to get the kid back to class, right? Let me go follow him and get him back. And I think sometimes that's the wrong move because a lot of times when a kid runs out, the kid's escalated, the adults are escalated, everybody's escalated. So my thought is whoever goes after the kid, which usually there's a person who's sort of designated, right, to go after a kid, whoever goes after a kid, keep teaching. Like, so wherever the kid runs, just kind of get by him and, hey, I know you're upset, but what's a subject and a verb again? Just tell me that. Like wherever they are, I'll just continue teaching. And my thought behind that is, I want the kid to learn that by running out of here, instruction doesn't stop. Like I'm not gonna overwhelm you, but I want you to learn that it's almost better to stay in here because when you run out, here comes this paraprofessional, here comes this teacher, here comes this person who's like peppering me with all these questions. And I don't really want that. So I think it's better off if I stay in there. Makes sense?
100%. And the other thing that I was thinking too is like, in some cases, a kid's going to hear you say that and they're going to sprint the other way. And if that's the case for those kids, I do agree with Brian. It's like, make sure that whatever they're trying to escape, they don't escape by eloping. So yeah, in the moment, they might not be able to complete what they need to complete, but that means before they can go back to class, they have to complete that. So I think just kind of figuring out why they were escaping, why they were fleeing in the first place is really important. But yep, 100%. Don't let those kids escape what they're trying to get away from in the first place.
But you're right. So I think the real answer to that is to really understand where the behavior is coming from. Why are they running out? What are they trying to get away from? Is there a pattern, right? I think that's always an important thing to look at. Does it seem to be the same type of day? Is it the same thing that's going on in the class? Is it the kid can't read very well? And so because they can't read very well, it's showing itself in multiple other places. I know that was a thing for me as a kid. If, sometimes I think certain kids view situations as, I'm in this situation right now and I don't really know what I'm doing and I don't want to look stupid in front of everybody. And so if there's a chance of me looking stupid, let me be bad. Because if you have a choice of bad or like, for example, if I had 2 stamps over here and I was going to stamp your forehead, and for the rest of tonight and tomorrow, you were going to get one of 2 labels and you had to pick bad or stupid, which would you pick?
Bad.
Me too. Me too. I would pick bad, of course. Right. And I think a lot of kids are in that boat in their mind, right? They're not exactly sure, right? Is someone going to laugh at me? Am I going to look like I don't know what's going on? Let me act out, because if I act out, well, they'll still laugh at me, but at least they're laughing at being bad rather than being dumb. And right?
Mm-hmm. The other thing I was going to say with that too is when you're talking with kids about what's going on and you're really kind of diving in to try and figure out what's happening, obviously you want to do this when a kid is not escalated. You want to do it proactively. Once you know a behavior is going to occur, just kind of thinking about what you can do to help that kid is involve them in the problem solving process. So kids have more buy-in if you give them a chance to say what they need and to actually kind of make some of the decisions. If you ever are struggling with buy-in from a kid, you need to involve them because it's part of their life. You know, we're trying to help them think of solutions to what's happening. And if we make all of the choices for them, they never learn that. They never learn how to figure out what to do when they're in college someday and they can't finish a paper on time. So giving them the strategies to kind of communicate that too when they're, you know, level-headed and they're not escalated is really important as well.
And the reason that works so well, right? The reason that works so well is because one of the fundamental reasons that kids misbehave and disengage is a lack of feeling of power and control in their life. And oftentimes when you trace it back to their home life, there's one of 2 things going on, right? Home life number 1 is the kid feels like they are in complete control. And these are the kids who go home and they do whatever they want, right? They play video games till all hours of the night. They don't have very much supervision. They eat whenever they want, right? There's no structure. And so in their mind, they're like, well, I get to go home and I'm in charge, right? I get to do whatever I want. Now I come to school and this teacher is trying to tell me like what time I'm supposed to eat and when I'm supposed to go, where I'm supposed to walk and what the homework is and what the consequences are. And I'm used to having this thing called power, right? I have it in my life at home. Now I come to school and the teacher's trying to take it from me. And I'm not letting go of it, right? This is a thing that I have that I don't want to give up. And these are often the kids that become argumentative. They could become they're called oppositional. They're called defiant, right? Those are the terms for those kids. And then there's the other kind of home life too, which isn't as prevalent, but it is real, where it's the kid who goes home and everything's done for them. So they often feel no power and control as well because their life is structured for them 24/7, right? This is the kid where, you know, you have football practice from 3:00 until 4:30. I'll pick you up at 4:30. And then you have, you know, you have your piano lesson from 4:45 until 5. And then there's dinner from 5 until 6. And then at 6:00, you will take a shower. And when you're done taking a shower, then you'll read a book. And when you're done, right? This is actually the child of many teachers, right? Everybody like, and so that kid's like, yo, can I get a little power and control in my life? Can I feel like I'm in charge once in a while? And when we fill that need for a kid, it's so incredibly powerful. And involving kids in decision-making process, and not just what you were saying, but like all sorts of decisions, right? Like things like, hey, bud, come here. Like I was thinking about when, you know, we were going to read a book tomorrow and I wasn't sure which one we should do. What were you thinking? Should we do this one, or this one? Which one do you, by the way, when we're done reading, I don't know, should we do these questions or these? You know what? Why don't you help me write the question? I bet you could write really good questions. What do you think? Notice how I'm in, like, it's almost like my mindset is I'm the head coach and that kid is going to be my first assistant right next to me, kind of running the place through them. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Choice language. It's 100% choice language. You know, it's kind of like one of those things. If you say, hey, do you want to pick up your mess? They can say yes or no. So don't give them the opportunity to say no, right? Give them choices. They still have that control, and then they're going to do what you want to do. There's nothing worse. There's so many teachers that do this and they get so frustrated about it. I'm like, you set yourself up for it. They go into class and they say, are you going to start your math? What's the kid say? No. What do you do after that? There's no coming back after that. So if you give them a choice that they can kind of pick and choose.
So what specific? Can you give me the specific there? So instead of, are you going to do your math? Yes or no? What specifically would you, not to put you on the spot, but what's the conversation sound like instead?
If I were going to say something, I'd say,
Yeah.
are you going to start by putting your name on the paper? Or are you going to start at number 1?
Love it.
Are you going to write with a pencil or are you going to write with a crayon?
Which one are you going to write with? It's totally up to you. You get to pick. Right.
Yeah, you get to pick what you're going to do first. You know, kind of switch the mindset. But if you give kids the opportunity to say no, the answer is always no. That's like sometimes I'll have to go down to a room and I'll be kind of working with a kid and they'll say, this kid has really escalated. They need to leave. And the teacher will say, are you going to leave with Miss Chyna? And I'm like, whoa, you set me up for failure there, because if they say no, there's nothing I could do about it, you know?
Right.
And so getting rid of those yes or no questions could really help in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but you did that so easily. Like you rattled that off so smoothly, and I don't think that's so smooth for a lot of us. I don't think the ability to do that, like, I think that's a lot easier said than done. Like, so how would that teacher do that? Like, how should a teacher have said that instead of, do you want to go with Miss Chyna? What should she say instead?
Would you like to walk with Miss Chyna or would you like to walk with me? Would you like to hold Miss Chyna's hand when we walk, or should we skip down the hallway? You know, just different ideas to kind of distract them, but still give them that control. And honestly, I am not kidding you. So when I am like trying to kind of adopt a new strategy, so if it's like choice language, sometimes I have a kiddo that kind of mimics everything I say. And so I was noticing when I would talk to this kid, I'd be like, good morning. And then the kid would then say good morning the same way that I would have to practice how to say good morning without that intonation in my voice, right? It's the same thing for anything that we want to implement in our classroom. So sometimes literally while I'm driving down the road to school today, I'm like, man, what am I going to do if Johnny refuses to do X, Y, or Z? What could I say instead? So I think it's just kind of pushing yourself to think of what those questions would be. Even if you have a kid that isn't going to be oppositional and they'll do what you need to, think about the different activities that you do in a day and just think to yourself, how can you kind of rephrase what you're going to do? Are you going to start your math with a multiplication chart, or are you just going to use your paper pencil? Right. Just constantly thinking of different questions that you can ask. Yes,
I love that. And, you know, that the concept of choice, right? Like the willingness to give people and give kids the opportunity to pick what they're going to do, but not really pick, right? Like it's sort of like they're picking, but they're not, because they're all choices that we're okay with. And as long as we're okay with them, then, right, then does it really matter?
No. And I'd be lying if I said every choice option I've ever given has worked, because it hasn't. And sometimes I can't think of an example right now, but sometimes things come out of my mouth and I'm thinking, wow, I really shouldn't have given that choice. Like, here's one. One time I had a kid that was not ready to do work. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I said, would you like to go for a running break or would you like to start your work? This kid wasn't in probably the right mindset to go for a running break. So we went for a running break, and did the kid come back to my room? Absolutely not. So I thought, next time that won't be a choice option that I give, because it didn't work for the kid. Yeah. But I said, hey, would you like to use kinetic sand and then start your work? 100% yes, because then they wouldn't have left my room. But there's so many things that we try and they just don't work, and that's just
yeah. I remember being in an inclusion class, and one of the co-teachers that I worked with asked the kids to do they were complaining about the work. They didn't want to do the work. And so she was like, okay, how about you do the 5 easiest on the page, right? Everyone do the 5 easiest tonight. That's your homework. So we had this kid who came in the next day and he had all 15 done, right? So the teacher looks at him, and he was a kid who didn't do his work a lot. It's just, she looks at him and she's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to, you were supposed to only do the 5 easiest. And he's like, well, how else was I supposed to know the 5 easiest? I had to do them all to figure out which the 5 easiest were. Like, obviously I had to do them all. And so we were like, okay, got you. But yeah, I think that's a really, really powerful concept. And, and I think attention is the other thing for kids who run out, right? Like, they love to be noticed, and you got to look at, like, what kind of attention is it, right? Is it the kind where the kid is craving more because they don't get very much at home? Or is it the kind where the kid gets so much at home, they don't know how to live without it, right? And in that case, we almost have to give them less. So focusing on attention, right? Paying attention to that kid. And sometimes it's little things, right? So that kid who runs out and makes a big scene, sometimes it's, noticing the second they walk in my room, and seeing them walk in appropriately and walking up to them and saying, hey, come here, I want to talk to you. Great job walking in. Listen to me. I love how you walked in today. If you walk in like that every single time, oh my goodness, good things are going to happen for you. I'm so proud of you. You hear what I'm telling you? Great job. And like, sometimes, you know, people, oh, Brian, did you just praise the kid for walking inappropriately? Isn't that what they're supposed to do? Yes. Like, that's what they're supposed to do. But that's not really what I did, right? In my mind, my thought process was, I have this kid who's craving attention, right? They need it really bad. For them, it's like water. If they don't get it, they're going to take it, right? And if they don't take it, they're going to die. And so in their mind, they're like, I need this thing so bad. And so what did I do, right? The second they came in my room, I was just all over them with, I love this, great job on that. Why? My thought is, if I give you if you drink a whole bottle of water right now, right? Maybe there's a good chance you could go the next half hour, 45 minutes without needing more. And it's the same thing with attention. If I give you a whole bunch right now, maybe there's a good chance you can go the next half hour, 45 minutes. And I think sometimes it's easy to, when kids do the appropriate thing, I think it's easy to not notice that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's the thing they're supposed to do. Right. And so sometimes it's going out of our way to really praise that, and privately, like in the kid's ear, where you're just like, I love how you did this. Great job. And then you walk away, get out of there.
Mm-hmm. And I think I know, you know, teaching is a busy, busy day. You know, you start off with, you hit the ground running, you're sprinting, you're trying to get everything ready, and kids are coming in the door. And I think it's so easy for teachers to be like, man, I didn't get this done. I need to get these papers. I need to set this here, set this here, set this here. But I think so many problems could be prevented in the morning if teachers literally just said, wow, I'm so happy to see you today. Oh my gosh, it's so great to see you. Happy Monday. And I think just literally that little eye contact and welcoming kids in could make a world of difference. I mean, I'm seeing it now, especially since we're getting to the end of the year and teachers are like in survival mode, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking, if you can just praise your kids every day when they walk in, it's going to make a world of difference, even if you don't notice it. The other thing that I noticed too with teachers is that, you know, I observe in a lot of different classrooms, and sometimes I find, you know, teachers will say, oh my goodness, my class is all over the place. They're not listening. This is happening. This is happening. And I'm there to observe certain kids, right? And while I'm observing kids, I'm also observing just the dynamic in the classroom, right? So it's like, what is the teacher kind of paying attention to? What are they drawing attention to? And a lot of times what I notice is happening is, hey, pick up your pencil. Hey, get started at number 1. Hey, why aren't you doing this? Nope, you need to get that done. You need to do this. Whereas if you were drawing attention to the kids that were doing the right thing, maybe it would kind of get you into that positive mindset and get other kids focused on more so what they should be doing right rather than what's going wrong. You know what I mean? It's all your mindset, how you view teaching.
Yep. Totally. I totally agree with that. And I think the focal point being on it, just sort of in general, on where the behavior is coming from is always the thing, right? It's always looking at what is driving it to the surface, what is pushing it here. And look, and you talked about getting toward the end of the year. And, I think right now the mindset has to be one of, how am I going to be remembered? Right now, this is the finish line is upon us, right? Like we can see the finish line. It's in sight. We're running toward it. And it's like right now there's this chance to put yourself in I always thought to myself toward the end of the year, okay, like 5 years from now or 10 years from now, when somebody asks these kids that are in front of me, who was your favorite teacher? Or like, what teacher? I'm getting the chills right now when I say it, so I know it's true. Like, who's your favorite teacher? Who's the person that you remember? Like, I wanted them to say me. Like, I wanted them to say Mr. Manley. Like, he was a lunatic. Like, he was this guy who, like, people didn't want me in their class, and he was running around the hall saying, "I'll take him, put him in my room," and like that mindset, And this is the opportunity right now. And I think if we take that mindset as teachers, this moment, and we just view it as, how am I going to be remembered? It makes everything fall into place, because I think it's so easy to get caught up, especially now, in the stuff that doesn't really matter. I mean, do you remember what score you got on your 4th grade state exam when you were in 4th grade? I'm curious.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Right? Who does? You want to know why you don't remember? No disrespect, everyone, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like now it does to us as educators, because we're graded on that and we're scored on that and we're judged on that. No question. Right. But to the actual kid, what matters? What matters is right now is an opportunity, this moment, to say to a kid, hey, bud, come here. I want to talk to you. Listen, I know you see a lot of us teachers. We're kind of excited around school because school's kind of ending and we get the summer off and we're excited for that. But listen, like, I know for you, the summer's tough, man. And like, there's not a lot of food and you're not exactly sometimes sure who you're going to be living with. And can we talk about that right now? I want to kind of help you through what's going on. And so tell me about your summer. What do you have going on? Like, this is the time right now to do that. And when we do that, I think the kids see us differently. You know, they're like, this person's different.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think we always think about all the conversations that we have an opportunity to have. So like, for example, if you think about somebody that you have a relationship with, whether it's a friend, a family member, whatever, and if you have a tough day, you kind of lose it on them, right? You kind of off the handle, you're upset. The next time that you have to go to talk to them, that's uncomfortable. You're stressed. You don't know if it's kind of broken the relationship. You don't know where you stand. And so one of my favorite things, I actually just did it with a kid today. I was sitting at the table with this kid and the kid was like, you hate me. I did this. And I said, hey, can you listen to me right now? I said, there isn't one thing you could do that would ever make me hate you. Whether you are tearing things apart or, you know, you just ripped your binder apart, you kicked this. And guess what? I care about you the same amount that I cared about you this morning. And I'm going to care about you the same amount again tomorrow. There's nothing you could do that could change how much I care about you and how I'm going to be here for you. And I think just really making sure that kids know that, they know that they, no matter what they do, there's somebody there that cares. Because so many of these kids are going home at night, and when they do something like that, their parents are calling them a piece of crap, or they're screaming at them, or they're saying they don't care about them. There's a lot of things that are going on at home that kind of precondition kids to think that that's how everybody's going to be. So when they know they have a cheerleader and somebody that's always there, it just gets them through. I agree 100%, Brian, with the end of the year thing. The end of the year, the one thing that I'm always thinking about is I hope when that kid leaves that they know Miss Chyna is there rooting for them when they come back or when they go into middle school.
Right. You know, I was just looking at the comments. Somebody asked your thoughts or our thoughts on using the sensory room. Kid goes to the sensory room to take a break, but also destroyed items in there. Yeah, you know that picture that you sent me of your destroyed classroom, right? Like, how does that even happen? By the way, like how does that happen? Like, what precedes that?
So
you can answer two things and talk about this as well. Yeah.
So, anytime property destruction occurs, it depends on your school policy, the students, behavior plan that they have in place. For a lot of my kids, once they get to the point where they are being more destructive, we have a behavior plan where, we can kind of help them take a break in a spot that's safe, in a spot where they can't destroy a lot of items. A lot of times when kids are destroying property, if they're destroying it to that extreme where they're just tearing things apart, a lot of times it goes past escalation, and sometimes it's attention seeking. So they're like, what can I do to get a rise out of people? And a lot of times they need to test and test and test. How many things can I destroy before somebody absolutely loses it and gets frustrated? And I'll tell you what, a lot of times that doesn't work on me. I've seen a lot of things get destroyed. And so it kind of just depends on that student's behavior plan. But in regards to this question here, where it said the student doesn't clean up the mess he makes, should there be a different space if he wants to destroy things? So I would say it depends the purpose of having a kid go to a sensory room. If you're doing sensory rooms, in my opinion, depending on the kid, you almost want to have those scheduled, So for sensory rooms, if you have them scheduled, the thought is that if they need sensory input, if you have them scheduled throughout the day, they will get that input, and it won't lead them to needing to take a break at a different time because they're getting enough input. So let's say, for example, if a kid needs to be rocked, so they need that rocking motion, or if they need that like really, really heavy lifting type thing where they're doing crawls and all of these different activities, then if you proactively, once again, schedule breaks for them to do that, you shouldn't run into where they're destroying it. I would say you're going to kind of want to differentiate breaks. So if you're taking a sensory break, yes, that's in the sensory room. But in my opinion, if you're going to do any other break, usually, that's kind of like a calm down break where they need to leave the room for whatever reason. Maybe have a different space for that, and even different items that they can use in that space. What are your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, no, I think everything you said is on the money. And look, I think, again, like everything, there's usually something that ignites it. I mean, it's, look, it takes usually gasoline and a spark for an explosion, right? And so I'm not saying an inappropriate behavior is always both sides, but when you have an explosion, usually there's something that helped cause it. And, and we have to look at all parties involved. I mean, there are absolutely sometimes adults who pour gasoline on the fire. There's no, what did you say to me, young man? You get back here, knock it off, right? I know, sometimes just being too loud, right? Like as a kid, for me, I remember a lot of my reputation was that I was the kid who would take on the system, right? Like the thought was, wait till Brian comes, he'll do it. Somebody get Brian, he'll say it. Brian will buy it. Brian will, no, it's funnier if Brian's here. And like when a teacher would, pick that piece of paper up right now, young man. I said, pick it up. No. Yes, no, yes, no, yes. Boom, you're in a power struggle, right? And you're in a battle. And and the thing is, like I vividly remember thinking most of those times I wanted to pick the piece of paper up. I would have picked the piece of paper up, but you said it too loud and all my friends heard. And now they're all looking, right? So now it's this battle where they're all looking at me, right? And it's almost like we're fighting for the same thing, right? I don't want to look bad in front of my friends. The teacher doesn't want to look bad in front of the class. And so we argue, right? Now, what they could have done is come over to me privately and say, hey, come here, bro. I want to talk to you. Listen. I know for a fact that you didn't drop that piece of paper because you want to know something funny. I saw it there when you walked in. But you know what else? I also saw you step on it like 3 times today. And I would really, really appreciate if you picked it up. Thanks for picking it up, and then walk away. Don't stand there and watch, because that's the other thing sometimes, right? Teacher will make a command of a kid and then they'll stand over the kid's shoulder like, I'm going to make you do it. And again, that's a losing situation. So just walk away. And so for me, right? I'm telling you honest, I wouldn't have picked it up right away, right? So you would have walked away. I would have waited. Why? Because I had to make sure my friends aren't looking, and the minute everybody's not looking, I would have found you, the teacher, your eyes, and I would have walked over, grabbed the piece of paper, thrown it away, and kind of gone like this. And right, the thing probably would have been over. And so again, I think one of the mistakes that sometimes we make as educators is we really focus when it comes to behavior. We often focus on changing the kid. And I want to be clear, like I'm not saying the kid isn't a part of the problem. They absolutely are. The problem is, though, we don't control other people, right? And what I mean by that, when I say trying to change the kid, what I mean is think about how it usually works, right? In most schools, a kid misbehaves. What do we do first, right? We look at consequences. We look at punish, right? We do detention and in-school suspension and call your mom, and then it's move your clip from green to yellow to red. And notice what that all is, right? It's all change the kid, change the kid, change the kid. When that doesn't work, what do we do next? We turn to tickets and stickers and tiger bucks and rewards and bribes. What is that? Change the kid, change the kid, change the kid, change the kid, right? Notice how that's what that all has in common. And when that's the only place we look, and we don't look internally at what sometimes some of us do that helps pour the gasoline, we're never going to fix the problem. And what's amazing about this concept is when you look internally, right, in general, in life, when you look internally, almost always you find the answers. And look, I learned this in addiction recovery, right? So I've been in addiction recovery for almost 20 years. And when you go into addiction recovery, you don't have a choice, right? They hold a mirror up in front of your face and they're like, you got to look at yourself. And it's an ugly sight. And you're trying to dodge that mirror. Have you ever, by the way, have you ever watched yourself teach? Like, do you ever watch yourself? I don't know how it is for you, but there's nothing more nauseating for me than watching myself teach. Like, I don't like it. It's very uncomfortable because I'm like, oh, why do you talk like that? And why are you so loud? And why do you spit? And ooh, that looks gross. Or like you, before we started, I'm changing the shirt because my neck doesn't look right. Yeah. Like you just, there's nobody that will criticize you more than you will criticize yourself. And the truth is, because it's so uncomfortable to look in the mirror, we often don't do it, right? We only really do it when we're forced. And that's the key to behavior, is looking here versus looking there. That's what I think, at least.
And every kid that you're working with is going to shape how you teach, right? We are out of our minds if we think that we have never been in a situation like our kids kind of get into a power struggle with us. I can think back to situations that have happened in the last 5 years with different bosses and things like that, where they approach you in a way that they're probably frustrated and they kind of come off in a different way. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't deserve that. I don't understand why that kind of went that way. And that's how kids are feeling too sometimes when teachers approach them. I think we forget that kids are little people walking around, and sometimes they do get frustrated over little things. And if we don't expect them to do that, we're not being realistic.
One of my favorite lines that I like to use in my seminars is called, if you can quote, stay personally connected to kids without taking personally what they do and say, right? Stay personally connected to the kid without taking personally. Remember, it's not about you. It's almost always about something else going on in that kid's life. And if we can stay focused on that, and the truth is that's true for all of us, right? I mean, there's times, where I'll come home from a trip or tell me you don't come home from work. And, in general, sort of in life, your 8-year-old, your 12-year-old, your 15-year-old, they walk in the room and all they say is, hi, mom. Right. And they're, watch your tone. What do you mean watch all I said was hello? I know I'm not in the mood. You're not in the mood for what? Right. Cut it out. Stop being sarcastic. And then what happens, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes later, you're like, you get a drink, you get something to eat, you walk the dog. You're like, hey, come here. I didn't mean that, right? It's just this was going on and that was going on and the other thing was going on. And you want to know what, kid? I pretty much held it together all day. And then I happened to take it out on you. And we all do that. And the problem for a lot of kids is many of them don't have a safe place in their life to unload. And so they pick us. And the thing is, when they pick us, there's two choices, right? Like teachers have two choices. I'm not saying which choice they should pick, but there are two choices, right? Choice number one is you can view the kid as a defiant, disruptive, annoying, aggravating, pain in the you-know-what. You are allowed to view them that way, okay? However, the other choice is to say, wow, that kid cares about me so much. That kid feels so safe in my presence that he's willing to take it out on me. Wow, how lucky I feel. Go ahead, kid, let it out, because we all need that safe place sometimes. And sort of whichever mindset we take is, that sets the foundation for the way the rest of the whole relationship plays out with that kid.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. That's one of the most, I even think about that now. Some days I leave and I'm like, man, I think every single one of my kids had a meltdown in my room today. It must be me. But no, there's so many external factors that are taking place. And you're right. You should almost take it as an honor if kids are literally comfortable enough, if they trust you enough, if they know that you care enough that they can have those tough moments and they know that you're going to care about them still. That's a really, really big deal. And that is 100% my favorite thing about my job is that when kids have those tough moments, it is a beautiful thing to watch them work through it and kind of work on restoring those relationships, talking through it when it's done. It is amazing. And I think that is one of the most amazing things about being in a special ed position is that you get the opportunity to see kids, 100% when they are at their absolute worst, but you also get to see kids when they're coming down. They are feeling sorry for what they did. They're feeling remorseful and they truly want to make it better. These kids that have the biggest emotions, they have the most challenging home lives. They are the most resilient kids that are out there. And it's amazing to see.
Being a teacher, or an administrator, or educator, you're on the front lines. Like it's a front line job. It's a front line position. And the thing about being on the front lines is it's sort of like, you live in Miami or you live in New Orleans or you live in Houston, like you get the ocean view, right? And the ocean view is nice. I mean, it's nice. You got the beautiful blue water and you can smell the beach and you can get the nice white sand and it's amazing, right? It's kind of like teaching. You can see this kid grow and get better and improve. And sometimes you get the hurricane. Like it's no disrespect, but you're in the way. And when you're in the way and the hurricane's coming through, sometimes you get run over. And that's part of what we get, right? It kind of comes with the territory of the job that we have. And I think if we can view it that way and see it that way, it just allows us to react and respond so differently. And that's always the key, right? The key is how do I react and how do I respond in every situation? We're running up against time here. Any last couple words? That was fun.
Yeah, I know. Not that I can think of. There was some really good questions. It was good conversation for our first one.
What's your shirt say? It's better to be wild.
Better be wild.
Yes.
If you're a teacher, you know.
Right. People were asking what you do. Tell everybody a little bit. I mean, you kind of hit on it, but what do you do exactly?
Yeah, so I'm a K-5 special ed teacher. I work with behaviors in our school. I don't work with any specific disability area. I love all kids. I work with all kids, and I feel like I kind of have the best of all worlds. So I work with all disability areas. Some of my kids are in a more self-contained restrictive setting, in a leveling system, working their way back into the classroom. And I have kiddos that are in the classroom all day that they come down to me for calm down breaks and do different social emotional learning interventions, things like that. So yeah. It's a high-paced, high adrenaline job, and so it's I'm living the best life. I
think it's the heart. Look who's behind me. I think it's the hardest job that there is, and not to compare, but what you do is it's incredibly difficult, and you know the work that you do, and some of the things I've heard about some of your kids and the worlds that they come from. It's a testament to what you do, and we'll get into more of it in the future. Everybody, listen, thank you all. We had an amazing time. That was cool. And so okay, bi-weekly we think, but we might do a weekly. We might, right? Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how adventurous we're feeling, right?
You never know. You never know.
End up doing weekly, but for sure bi-weekly.
Hey, Steph. So Stephanie Levy, you see her? She's one of my favorite human beings on earth. In fact, so everybody knows that are fans of my podcast. I will still be doing interviews on the same feed, right? So this Beyond Behavior, the behaviors is going to come out now on my podcast feed. So if you're already subscribed, that's cool. You're just going to get this. It's going to come to you. And I'm also still going to do some interviews, and Stephanie's going to be one that I do. She is an incredible elementary school teacher. I think, Steph, am I right about this? I think you won Georgia State Teacher of the Year, correct? You were either like first or second. And if you didn't win, I don't know who could have possibly beaten you, because she's a special person, but I've known her for a while. So everyone, thank you so much. It's been really fun. Miss Chyna, good seeing you, and we'll talk soon, all right?
We'll be back in 2 weeks, so not next week, the Thursday after.
Except follow our Instagram, because we might change it and be back in 1 week. We'll see. We kind of had fun. So there's her Instagram. All right. My son's saying peace. Bye, everybody. Good seeing you. Take care, guys. Talk to you soon.